And we're back. So that was Blackmail. I really liked that movie. We both really liked it. One of the things that we talk about in doing these is does the movie improve with seeing it again? I definitely felt that it does. You know, knowing a little bit more about it certainly helped me. But having said that, it wasn't like it was confusing or we didn't know what was going on. And the first time we saw it. This definitely was better organized and definitely more watchable even the first time you see it. So, you know, just getting right to this now, would we recommend this to non-Hitchcock fans? Well, sure. I mean, this is pretty good. It's got murder, it's got blackmail, it's got suspense, it's got some neat things in it. I think you have to be patient with it if you're expecting something that's razzle-dazzle. This ain't it. But yeah, this is definitely something. This is also a Hitchcock movie that is the template for Hitchcock movies to come. We have many themes that we're going to see again and again. This is actually a good moment for me to mention that book again, that one of the co-authors of that book, A Year of Hitchcock, who has left a number of comments on our site. At the end of that book, A Year of Hitchcock, he and his co-author break down all of the Hitchcockian themes, and it's very worthwhile. If there's any way you can get this book from Amazon, on the left side of the page that we're on, we've got a little link to that book. So certainly, you know, not every Hitchcock theme was present in this movie, but lots of them were, and that's fun. Again, the whole point of doing this is. Can you watch some movie and think, wow, this is probably a Hitchcock movie, and find out that it is because they're very Hitchcockian. So some of those themes include, you know, again with the blonde leading lady, strong blonde leading lady. We have a chase in this one. We've got, you know, a murder again in this one. There's handcuffs in this one. That's a Hitchcock theme. There's staircases in this one. Brandy wasn't mentioned. It's in the play a little bit more, but there was definitely brandy in this one. Birds. Wow, birds is a big thing with Hitchcock movies. Birds signal chaos. And in this particular movie, I thought that the scene where, you know, she's snuck back home after walking the streets of London all night, probably in utter shock of what's happened, you know, that her mother comes in, opens the drapes, and she's feeling really guilty. It's almost like that bird song. It's like the singing like a canary, like the bird was confessing her crime. So yeah, we'll see that again and again, where birds signal chaos. Sometimes when Diane and I were watching these Hitchcock movies, we'll see birds and we'll say chaos. So that's definitely a Hitchcockian theme. The climax, the big climax of the movie, happening in an iconic setting. This one took place at the British Museum, where he climbs up to the top of the dome and falls to his death, the blackmailer. What else? I mentioned the chase. There's a chase. Murder with a knife. Of course, we all know the murder with a knife in Psycho, but there's a few others to look for. Bathroom humor. We saw a little bit of the bathroom in this one, not a ton, but we'll look at that. So again, if you're getting into this, I strongly recommend getting this book because it's wonderful. So Full Circle also, the Wheels of Justice at the beginning, getting the guy, and the Wheels of Justice at the end, getting the wrong guy, possibly the wrong guy. So again, a big theme with Hitchcock movies is a wrong man theme. Not exactly in this one, because the whole point of being the wrong man theme with Hitchcock was to scare his audience. And how could he make his audience involved? Well, to have the main character be an everyday, normal person who is being wrongfully accused by the authorities, by the police, and make you feel like, wow, this could be happening to me. It isn't, but it's happening to this guy who could be me. Not so much in this one. He was clearly a bad guy. He was a known criminal, whatever. Speaking of the police, not exactly... I wouldn't say these were showing the police to be bumbling or sort of Keystone copy, but you know, kind of corrupt. It was interesting how quickly our main character, the handsome, dashing Detective Frank Weber of Scotland Yard, was quick to pin this murder on a guy that he knew didn't do it. it's not like he, and he was given a chance to just drop this whole thing and be done with it. But he definitely was quite satisfied to sweep this one under the carpet and pin it on the guy that did not do it. It's interesting that Hitchcock did not allow Annie Andra, his favorite actress at the time, at any moment to be the bad guy. She instantly didn't, she wanted to stop her boyfriend from pinning it on him. She confessed it. So interesting with the police. So I want to talk about two really cool things that we saw in this movie with regards to the shadows. You had to have noticed that there are shadows everywhere in this movie. Again, just to tell the story, to make it scary or suspenseful. Not scary, but certainly suspenseful. But two brilliant scenes. One was a Hitchcockian farewell to the silent era. The moment where the artist is about to, try to have his way with Alice, and he's thinking, yeah, I'm going to make this happen. The shadows from the chandelier above are on his face, and you see this mustache on his face. The bad guys in silent movies always had a big curly mustache. And so Hitchcock did this in that regard. The other fantastic use of shadows, which you may not have seen, was after Alice writes the confession letter to Frank, I've done this, I'm gonna give myself up. She stands up, and the shadows on her face are clearly the noose of a rope hanging herself, because confessing to a murder in England at the time meant you were going to be hanged. Very well done. So. Those were definitely some things that we wanted to talk about. Don't ever trust anyone in a Hitchcock movie. She trusted the bad guy, and see what happened with that. We saw that staircase, the scene rising up to his apartment, the bad guy. That, it's tempting to say, oh, that's quite Hitchcockian, but that's in almost exactly the same sort of thing as in the movie Seventh Heaven, where we're ascending up to the seventh floor in that excellent silent movie from 1927, Seventh Heaven. So Hitchcock probably saw, I know he saw it, and probably borrowed that from that. But having said that, after she's escaping the apartment after the murder is committed, is it a murder if it's self-defense? Is it? What would you call that? Is this even a murder? We'll talk about that in a moment. But she looks down the staircase and probably feels dizzy. We see that view from above, which again reminded me of Vertigo. Diane's absolute favorite scene in this movie, I have to say, is the incredible use of sound, where the gossiping neighbor is saying knife over and over and over. We have seen this before, and she laughed. It was delightful. All the reviews of this movie at the time in the 20s and the 30s talked about that scene. And what an ingenious use of sound. I didn't see any gratuitous uses of sound. There was always a reason that sound was moving the picture forward. And here's why I want to talk about that. We've seen a number of silent films that have nothing to do with Hitchcock to put these movies into context. We've also seen some early sound films, and we're going to talk about them really briefly here. They're awful. It's almost like the directors and they just use sound just to use it, just to put it in the movie. And as an example, this movie came out in 1929. Well, the best picture that year was Broadway Melody, which, if you're looking it up, is called Broadway Melody of 1929, because it was remade, so they had it as a Broadway Melody in 1955 or something. So do yourself a favor and do not rent this movie and watch it. It was the second best picture ever, Broadway Melody. It's awful. It's loud. It's annoying. It starts off, it's clearly they're just being noisy, and there's instruments and there's music, and they break into song for no reason whatsoever. I'm not a big musical guy. I don't like it when there's a scene in a musical and they just suddenly break into song. However, in every musical you've ever seen, the song at least has something to do with the plot. Most of them anyways. It's just harder to make it seem natural when they're breaking into song. The Sound of Music does that very well, where every time they break into song, it seems natural, and it has something to do with the plot. In Broadway Melody, it's ridiculous. There's another movie called In Old Arizona, also from 1929. I think it was also nominated for Best Picture. It didn't win, but it got Best Actor. It's actually the very first Hollywood entirely sound filmed and entirely filmed outdoors. So they used a different process. They didn't have to have a camera in a box. And again, ridiculous. There's a bunch of guys singing a song, and you sit there and watch them sing this song. So yeah, this was, and even Jazz Singer. You know, I've seen the Jazz Singer a couple of times. It's worthwhile. It's worth seeking out the Jazz Singer just to see it. But you know, the whole thing is a silent movie, and suddenly Al Jolson is singing a song, and they make that sound. That's no way to do it. Hitchcock did such a good job of incorporating this sound. It's impossible how. I mean, this is the moment that we're really saying this guy is very, very special, and we just loved it. So, yeah. Another movie, by the way, from 1929 to seriously check out. Don't watch any of those other ones, but Alibi from 1929. A Hollywood movie, nothing to do with Alfred Hitchcock, but I defy you to watch that movie and not sit there with all the knowledge you have now with watching all these movies and the knowledge you have about Hitchcock, to not sit there and think, wow, that's really Hitchcockian. So, you know, other people were making movies like this. I wanted to talk about, too, the fact that what we just saw really was a silent film. There, you know, this is an 86-minute movie we just watched. There's really actually only about 13 minutes of synchronized dialogue with it. Same with Jazz Singer. Jazz Singer was 88 minutes, and I think there's 10 or 12 minutes of... So why were these movies not instantly all talkies? Here's why. When the Jazz Singer came out, there was 12,000 movie theaters across the United States. Well, 150 of them had the ability to show a sound movie. So what's the point? Even a couple of years later, there was only 1,000 of those movie theaters that could show sound, and Canada and England and European countries were even slower than that. So even by the time Hitchcock released Blackmail, this sound movie, only about 20% of the theaters in Britain could actually show the sound parts. So what did they do? Well, Blackmail was actually later released as a silent film. And apparently, as a silent film, it's even better than what we just saw, so it's worth checking out on YouTube. So these movies gradually became full talkies or full sound films because the theaters themselves gradually, they couldn't just instantly overnight get speakers and be able to show these movies. It took a long time, and these movies do take a long time to become all talkies. So also very briefly, the lighting was a problem in this movie because, you know, the arc lights that they used to light the scenes when they filmed in silent movies, well, they made noise. You'd hear this high-pitched noise, and so they had to move to incandescent lighting, so the lighting is bad, the sound was bad in these early movies. That's just the way it is. You hear a hiss in the sound. The other thing that's irritating is that when the movie we just saw switches to sound and you see the actors talking, there's no music. I mean, it's very stark. There's just the sound. There's no music in the background. If they wanted to have music at the time just as a background, they literally would have to have an orchestra in the next room playing the music because it all had to be happening at the same time. They could not dub, and that happens a really neat scene in next week's movie, Murder. Well, that feels like we've covered it. So yeah, we had a murder, we had suspense, we had some crime, we had a lot of Hitchcockian things. It was excellent. We loved it. I probably will see this movie again. We'll probably watch it again just because it was a darn good one. So, right. So next week we have a movie called Murder from 1930. Now we like that one as well. So we're very excited. But until then, from our couch to yours, we'll see you next week.